It was clear that I had pretty low expectations going into Mufasa. I had concerns that it would have the same pitfalls as the 2019 Lion King remake, but unlike the 2019 remake, this movie actually serves a purpose. And you know what? I actually enjoyed it. So to all the people who said I wasn't going to give it a chance, go back and actually watch my video on my concerns. But it being enjoyable to me does not mean that it was necessarily a certified cult classic. In fact, this movie seems to be having a similar situation like the Mario movie when it comes to the critics versus the audience. And when you turn to good old trusty YouTube reviews, you still see a divide. So coming from a long-time Lion King fan, here's my thoughts and overall review on Mufasa: The Lion King. Enjoy. Some of you probably haven't watched it, so here's the overall story recap. Feel free to skip this part if you've already watched the movie. The film is told from the perspective of Rafiki, who tells the story to Kiara to ease her nerves about her mom and dad, Simba and Nala, being away. He begins with young Mufasa, who's asking his parents about Malele, and they're like, "Oh boy, do we have a show for you." I suppose it was a nice way to introduce the overarching plot of this whole film, that being everyone's journey to Malele, which they explain as the sort of place that you're trying to get to, whether it be a physical place like the Pride Lands in this instance, or a personal place like Mufasa accepting his destiny as a leader. But the Malele song put me to sleep, only for me to waken back up by rushing waters, sweeping Mufasa away from his family and the only life he's ever known. And then he meets Taka, who almost immediately reenacted the famous "Long Live the King" scene from The Lion King. I mean, come on Disney, you could have waited a little longer.
Huh? Hey guys, recognize this scene?
Yes, now, get out of here. Taka doesn't actually end up betraying Mufasa in this scene, however, but he doesn't quite save him. Disney's foreshadowing abilities are very subtle, he tries to say with a straight face. Here we're introduced to Eshe, Taka's mother, who is the one who actually saves Mufasa. And we're also introduced to Taka's father, Obasi, who's a jerk. But it doesn't really matter because he doesn't last long. After a song and dance routine with Taka and Mufasa, we're introduced to our main villains, the White Lions and their leader Kiros, who want to kill all other lion prides. Pretty drastic, right? Taka and Mufasa have to flee because the White Lions are going to kill them all. And now it's a road trip story. Heck yeah! On the road, they run into a lioness named Sarabi and a hornbill named Zazu, who's her newly appointed protector. They invite her to join them in their journey to Malele. Oh, and Rafiki is exiled out of his monkey tree and joins in on their little posse. So now we have all of our Pride Land founders. They encounter troubles with the White Lions, but eventually lose them in the mountains, only for Taka to betray them, because he loves Sarabi. Well, not because of that, because Mufasa and Sarabi love each other. I'll discuss this more, but it makes more sense when you think about it. But mentioning a quick recap here, it makes Taka seem like a pathetic simp who can't get over Sarabi, even though there are other lionesses in the world, but now I'm getting distracted again. They make it to the Pride Lands, but are met with the White Lions. Mufasa knows they can't take them all alone, so he inspires the other animals there to fight with him. At first they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to help our future killer. But he gets them to see the larger picture in the end, and they defeat the White Lions. Oh, and Mufasa finally reunites with his mother again. Happy days. Rock falls, Taka gets a scar, and they all vow to never mention Malele again. That last one wasn't true, by the way, but they never do mention it again in The Lion King. I guess that means they're all where they're supposed to be. They've already reached Malele. Yeah, that's probably it. It's totally not because this movie was made after The Lion King. So yeah, that's Mufasa quickly recapped. Now, if you weren't a fan of the 2019 Lion King remake, don't write this movie off already. Yes, it's in the same CG animation style, but it differs in how extreme they went with the realism. The biggest critique I saw of the 2019 Lion King movie is that the characters lack depth and emotion. They made them look too real, in other words, which ended up not working very well. Mufasa, however, gave the characters much more animated facial expressions, which to be fair, did look goofy at points, but still way better than the lifeless lions of 2019. This is great because the audience isn't left with questions on what the character is thinking. Props there. Another critique of the 2019 Lion King movie that I saw thrown around was that they took pretty much no creative liberty with the Lion King storyline. They kept it too pure. This movie does not suffer from that issue. The writers and creators were not walking on eggshells with the sanctity of the Lion King canon, which sure, disregards the Disney Junior show The Lion Guard as part of this canon, but I'll have a whole different video discussing the Lion King timelines and how it's a complete mess, especially with this new installment. But I wouldn't say it's a bad thing that it broke off from what was previously considered canon in The Lion Guard. Many people didn't watch that show. If you're one of them and want to get caught up, you can watch my 5-minute recap of the show after you finish this video. But I think because it differed from The Lion Guard, it gave it a chance to spread its wings and create something brand new and exciting, which is a nice new change of pace in my opinion. Some will be bothered that not all Lion King pieces of media are in the same canon, but it doesn't bother me because the CGI live action animation is now different from the 2D animated style Lion King. But now we need to talk about the songs, which honestly need a whole video dedicated to themselves because they make no sense. Don't get me wrong, most of them are catchy. I said most, not all. I'm looking at you, Malele. He got mad at me. But all of them lack depth and character that the original Lion King songs captured. It felt like they tried too hard to be like the original Lion King songs, but failed to be memorable. It seriously felt like they told Lin-Manuel to make songs like the Lion King, and that's it. The first vocals you hear in the first song, and in the movie actually, is the guy who did the famous first vocals you hear in the original Lion King. Nice callback and all, but it was kind of missing Carmen Twilly to bring it all together. Still decent though. You know what wasn't decent? Mulele. Now, if you like this song, good for you. I wish I liked it, but I really don't. It just feels like a nothing song. Like, I literally can't remember anything about this song except that it's supposed to introduce the main premise of the film. Problem is that it lacks the lyrical depth in order for it to be something special, dare I say, magical. Oh man, I've been watching too many Disney movies. The problem doesn't just lie with the fact that the lyrics lack depth, it also just isn't fun to listen to. It's meh, whatever, moving on. I Always Wanted a Brother is catchy enough if you listen to it several times. First time I heard it, I thought it was kind of annoying, but the more I listened to it, the more I enjoyed it, and now I unironically think it's a bop. Not quite a banger, but a bop. However, this song does still suffer from a few issues. For one, it tries to be a 2-for-1 song. What I mean by that is it wants to be a fun song about Taka and Mufasa's different views on the circle of life and what it means to be king, while also being a deeper song about how Mufasa struggles to fit into a new family while still missing his parents, while Taka is overprotective of Mufasa because he longed for companionship. Wait, was that foreshadowing Taka's extreme desire to be Sarabi's mate? Okay, wait. I'm getting ahead of myself. I still think this song is good. I just wish it elaborated more on just one of the messages I mentioned. And then the other part could have been a separate song and replaced the whole cringe Hakuna Mufasa part. Hey, listen, I'm just saying. Speaking of cringe, Bye Bye caught me completely off guard. When I first heard him say bye bye in the theater, I thought I misheard. Because that phrase is just so childish. And I get it, they want to keep it at the PG rating, you don't want to have your villain song be too scary, but you didn't have to go this far. I get that Lin-Manuel Miranda likes his catchphrase type songs. I'm no song expert, so forgive the terminology if it's completely off the mark. But I feel like he could have come up with something that was catchy that wasn't bye bye. I mean, to be fair, this is definitely the most memorable song, and I actually do think it is quite catchy when you turn your brain off. It's definitely another song that grows on you, so maybe if I was aware of this song ahead of time, I wouldn't have been cringing so hard. Very catchy, but yeah, kind of cringe. We Go Together was a nice road trip type song that moved the plot along nicely, and it was fun to listen to in the theater. Listening back to it from the soundtrack, I don't know what it is, but Sarabi's vocals are turned down so much to the point of not making the song enjoyable. I tried listening to it on different platforms, but no, for some reason the recorded version of the song was mixed incorrectly. Thankfully, it isn't like that in the film, but weird nonetheless. Tell Me It's You is this film's Can You Feel the Love Tonight? And I know it's hard to live up to what Elton John did with the original, but this new love song just didn't cut the mustard for me. This song especially felt like it was taking its cues from its Lion King counterpart. The lyrics are basically the same when you boil it down. Mufasa is holding back from Sarabi, partially because of his own insecurities, and Sarabi is optimistic about Mufasa and believes that he can live up to his potential. Sound familiar? Yeah, that's basically the premise of Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Which, once again, could be the fact that all love songs are basically the same, but I was just wishing for something different. Which, hey, that's something that Bye Bye did well. I know, they had to have a love song in this, and this one was serviceable. It just didn't feel unique enough to me. Which leads us perfectly into Brother Betrayal. Easily the best song in the entire film, in my opinion. This is what I wanted out of these songs. Brother Betrayal does an amazing job portraying the raw emotions Taka is feeling towards Mufasa. It isn't longer than it needs to be. There's no weird phrases or sounds. The mixing is proper even on the album, and it reminds me just enough of Be Prepared without actually taking me out of the story with, oh, this is this film's Lion King counterpart. It also ties up the love song very nicely, which I would say that is the only downfall of this. Whereas in the film, it doesn't really leave any breathing room at all between the mushy gushy Tell Me It's You and this heartbreaking double crossing. When I first heard it in the theater, I thought it was part of the love song, just at the end. But that could just be me, and it really is just nitpicking for what is easily the best song in Mufasa. Overall, I give these songs a pass. They work well in the film itself, but not anything you're going to be listening to on repeat, except for maybe I've Always Wanted a Brother or Bye Bye. But they're not near as iconic as the original Lion King songs, which I guess is the downfall of giving full creative liberty to a single person, that being Lin-Manuel Miranda, who did an absolutely fantastic job with Encanto, but the songs in Mufasa just felt too safe. It definitely felt like he was just getting a paycheck with this one, rather than this being a passion project for him. And because of that, I feel like its greatness was hindered. Kind of like how Timon and Pumbaa hindered it from being a great movie. Okay, maybe that's a bit harsh, but it's actually kind of true. It definitely felt like the thought process behind Timon and Pumbaa interrupting the story was to make them the comedic relief, like they didn't trust the Mufasa story itself to have enough lightheartedness, when in actuality, all it did was ruin the pacing of the story that the viewers actually cared about. Whenever they flashed forward to the present, I was just waiting for them to finish up with whatever forced bathroom joke they were going to make. And man, there were too many of them. Every time I was starting to get sucked into the story, I got sucked right back out with the cut to Timon and Pumbaa being upset that the story wasn't about them. They're like the annoying people in the theater that won't stop talking and commenting on everything that's going on. If those people were commenting about how they wish they were in the story, I mean, come on, it's just frustrating. I can understand them wanting to kind of mesh together the funny interjections Timon and Pumbaa had in The Lion King 1.5, but please save it for Mufasa 1.5, which, man, wrap your head around that timeline. They could have just had them in the beginning when Rafiki introduces the story to Kiara. And if they had never returned while the story was being told, that would have been fine. I would have been A-okay with that. In fact, it would have saved the movie. Didn't work, wasn't necessary, and these little twerps completely ruined the film, and you can't change my mind. But how was the story itself, that being the Mufasa storyline? Actually, quite good. I've heard amazing things about Barry Jenkins movies, but I've never seen any of them. Until now. And wow, this man turned what could have easily been a bland, rushed story into a genuinely great film. I mean, besides the Timon and Pumbaa parts, of course. I wasn't sure how they were going to handle this film. Were they going to try and tie it in with the animated movies and shows? Or were they going to try and solidify that the live actions are completely different canons from the animated stuff? Because the live action remake was already slightly showing its cracks and staying true to the original 1994 film. And considering the Lion Guard already discussed how Taka got his scar, they had to choose a side. And they chose to go with a completely different canon, which is kind of a cop-out answer, but I respect it. Some have theorized ways for this to remain in the animated timeline, but do you really think the writers for Mufasa cared about having it be accurate to the Lion Guard? I don't think so. It really doesn't matter that much to me, but them being two completely separate timelines means that this film can stand on its own 2 feet without having to stick within the guidelines of a Disney Junior show. Not that the Lion Guard handled the Lion King lore poorly or anything, but it would have been weird to have to tie together the Roar of the Elders from the Lion Guard into this film. It was already getting a bit out of hand with the last season of the Lion Guard, and unlike my YouTube videos, the pacing for this film was actually quite good. Something tricky to do in a road trip story. Which the road trip part only occupied about half the film, but, you know, I'm a sucker for road trip stories, so I'll put this film in that category. And then, of course, there's the musical category, but that's more of a method for the storytelling rather than the overall category. Other than Malele, the songs actually moved the plot along, albeit sometimes too fast for my liking, but there was a lot to cover in this film. That being said, if they did remove the Timon and Pumbaa scenes and elaborated more on, say, the relationship between Mufasa and Eshe and how that affected Taka, that would have made Taka's betrayal make a bit more sense. Because in the end, that's why he betrayed Mufasa. Sarabi was only the last straw. I mean that and several other reasons. It seemed throughout his whole childhood he was improperly parented by Ubasi and longed for some mommy time. Time which Mufasa got plenty of, him being exiled to only hang out with the lionesses. Ubasi was not a good influence on Taka's life, where Eshe was an incredible mentor for Mufasa. If we had seen a bit more of the jealousy Taka had towards Mufasa, the relationship would have been more established, and it would have laid the groundwork of the early tension between the two brothers. Without that, it makes it seem Taka is an insecure psychopath who cracks at the first lioness that rejects him, which we obviously know he's both insecure and a psychopath later on, but he wasn't always. This movie shows that Taka does indeed have a good heart in there somewhere. It's just his judgment is clouded with poor advice from Ubasi. But overall, I felt like Taka's slow descent to villainy was gradual enough to be somewhat well developed, especially if you look at the bigger picture in mind. But you can't just look at one brother. We of course have to look at who this film is named after, Mufasa. And I must say, I thought they handled his character wonderfully. I've always been a Mufasa skeptic. How they portrayed Mufasa in the original Lion King movie, in my opinion, was always kind of high and mighty, and a bit controlling. Yes, he's a great father figure, I won't deny that. I just can never get around how he justified eating the antelope. Yes, we eat the antelope, but when our bodies die of natural causes, it becomes the grass. And they eat the grass. Therefore, we can brutally murder Jerry the antelope. Now see, Simba? It all works out in the end. I know. It's not a popular opinion. I posted a more in-depth video about this on my main channel, and man, did you guys tear me to shreds.
Emotional damage!
After watching Mufasa, I feel like I couldn't be any more wrong. Mufasa understandably has trauma in this film, but he doesn't push people away. He actually does the opposite. He welcomes Eshe as a new mother figure. He constantly defends Taka, even though Taka is almost always in the wrong. Rather than becoming bitter about his circumstances, he leans into the support from people he's close with. This demonstrates wonderfully that although Mufasa may later live in a place called Pride Rock, he lacks self-pride, which allows him to open up to help. And this is actually a wonderful quality, one that is not shown enough in today's Hollywood films. Lately, there have been a lot of characters who possess the flaw of narcissism, which is fine to show in a character as long as they grow from that, but it gets kind of old having a character who is flawed in this way. What I'm trying to say is that it's a nice change of pace to see Mufasa, a protagonist who's self-sacrificial to a fault. When he saves Sarabi during an elephant stampede, he gives credit of saving her to Taka, because he knows he likes Sarabi, even though obviously Mufasa also has feelings for her. This film just did an incredible job making Mufasa a likable protagonist. Even I, a Mufasa skeptic, was hardcore rooting for him throughout the whole film. It just goes to show that selflessness is easily the most likable trait a person can have. I love what they did with his character and how he grew to accept his destiny as a leader. Just phenomenal. Heroes being the antagonist for this film was good. Honestly, I just couldn't shake the feeling that the White Lions could have been more of a threat. Their initial goal was to wipe out all lion prides, which in itself is quite violent, but I think why they seem like passive villains is because we never see them kill anybody on screen. Now, the original Lion King is rated G, and this movie is rated PG, and so is the CG Lion King remake. Do you feel the CG animated ones are more scary than the animated ones? I don't think so. But I suppose how the MPA chooses ratings could have changed. But the fact that it's a higher rating than the first means they should be able to show a little violence. Because the original one, which was rated G, certainly did. Just really lean into the brutality of Kiro's motivations. Because he not only wants to wipe out all other lion prides, he's also wanting revenge on Mufasa for killing his son. But the only fight scene we see with the White Lions is when Mufasa and Eshe are attacked, which Mufasa easily defeats them. Maybe it's a testament to Mufasa's natural fighting abilities and brute strength, but still, aren't these guys supposed to be like twice the size of a normal lion or something? Sure, they easily disarm Eshe, but she's an older lioness, and it was a 2-on-1, which was hardly fair. Alright, that part doesn't really bother me because Mufasa does hang out with the lionesses, which are the hunters and fighters of the pride, so maybe he picked up on some training from them. The part that does kind of bother me is that we never see Kiros overpower anybody. Yes, it's alluded to that they killed Obasi's pride, but all we see is white lions circling them. And the final fight scene with Mufasa and Kyros was the only time we see Kyros be a real threat to Mufasa. Earlier, they had easily lost them in the snow, and they only made it to the Pride Lands because of Taka's help. Overall, I guess I just miss the good old days of Disney's villains actually being scary. This new generation of Disney villains just seems so incompetent. Which, sure, Kyros is scary, but he's just... he's not that. A good antagonist is able to outwit the protagonist and is more powerful in pretty much every way. And the only reason our hero is able to come out on top is because of their growth throughout the story. Good wins in the end because it's a rallying point for people. And in that matter, this film does that well, with every animal uniting under Mufasa's natural-born leadership. I just don't feel like they did a good enough job of making Kyros seem more powerful than Mufasa, because all we see throughout the film is our heroes outsmarting him at every turn. And the argument that it's a kids movie so they can't have too much violence in it is so stupid. Have you even watched the original Lion King? Overall, I thought Kyros' character was unique enough to satisfy the plot of the film, but not enough to warrant him as one of the greats in terms of Disney villains. As I mentioned before, the animation was a significant improvement over the 2019 film, so thumbs up there. I thought I would have had more problems discerning the characters, there being completely new characters and this being based off live action, so the lionesses especially look similar to each other. But they did a good job of making sure that the lionesses were different enough to where the ones with speaking roles, they had different scenes. I don't know how to word it. The only time I had a problem was at the end when Sarabi fought with Mufasa's mother. Hey, listen, they do look similar. I know Mufasa's mother looks older and her fur is probably a different shade of tan, but I'm colorblind. What do you want me to do? To summarize, I thought this was a nice entry into the Lion King franchise. With a couple of polishes here and there, including the removal of Timon and Pumbaa, this would easily be one of Disney's strongest films of recent years. The story was compelling enough to keep me interested, and the character arc of Mufasa was very strong. Taka's heart-wrenching anti-arc was also just handled so well. And alright, I waited this long, I have to say it. I wish this was 2D animated. There, I said it. I know everybody's saying it. I know I said it before and I'll continue saying it. But I truly feel this would have been more impactful in the Lion King legacy and the overall Disney legacy if it was 2D animated. But that is just my opinion. If you're a fan of the Lion King, this is a must watch. If you're not a Lion King fan, you could probably skip it. The songs were mid and the visuals just don't have the same magic as Disney's animated films. In the end, I would rank this after the 2019 film, but before the 1994 film. Haven't decided yet if I like it more than Simba's Pride, and I'll have to rewatch 1.5 in order to make my definitive Lion King film list. But let me know where you would put Mufasa. Also, where would you rank the other Lion King films? And what about the Lion Guard? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you've made it this far, you're probably a Lion King fan. If so, then be sure to subscribe because I cover all things Lion King related on this channel. Speaking of, YouTube thinks you'll like the video that just popped up on screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.